No, the ayes have it. The question is that clauses 1 to 3 stand part.
Okay, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman.
Morris Williams.
Chairman, look, I just want to take an opportunity, as this is the summary of the Committee of the Whole, to thank all members and just to say to them that this is never ever going to be perfect. It never was, it never will be, but I'm really pleased that it's a good attempt at getting a lot done rather than the alternative, which was to do nothing and leave people stranded. And yes, I feel for those. It's a little bit like if the government comes and takes your section away to build a motorway on, as happens under the Public Works Act, you often can be one of the most lucky because they at least compensate you. But if you're the house that's next door, you get nothing and you feel aggrieved that they've drawn the line just across your back boundary and wish they'd taken yours. And that'll always be the case when you draw lines. As soon as you do this 10-year, which is in, as I said in my presentation during the Part 1 debate, it's in the Building Act, it's in a whole lot of other things, including the Weathertight Homes Resolution Service Act. The 10-year limitation is there. The 10-year limitation is on local authorities and their ability to be held accountable for stuff. And so the moment you draw that line in the sand, there is somebody who's 10 years and 1 month. In fact, I'll give the committee a really good example. I had one man come to see me who was just beside himself about the 10 years, and that he was part of a residential development in which he had bought his place quite a bit after most of the others had, and yet they qualified for the 10 years because they were under it. And the reason was he had bought the display home. And the display home had been built outside of the 10 years and used as the display home for about a year and a half while all the others were built and sold. And then he'd bought it. Turned out they were all leaky. The others all got it because they were inside the 10 years. He didn't. And all I can say is I feel for him. I think it's ghastly that that's the case. But the moment you decide you're going to move that line, you can just put sums of money that are horrendous beside it, and where do you stop? Because if it's 10 years and 3 months, which he was, what do you do with the people who are 10 years and 4 months? And then what do you do with the person of 10 years and 5 months? And I think the 10 years is a tried and true limit in the Act. So I thank members for their contribution. I've tried to make sure I've answered the questions to things that were asked. I can promise you this has consumed hundreds of hours of meetings and trying to bring all parties together, which we've finally done. And I can remember going to so many meetings. Paula Bennett took me to one in West Auckland, which I think really stopped me in my tracks. It was to do with a couple of apartment blocks at Westwood Ho. And Block A had been consented by the Waitakere City Council, and Block B had been consented by an independent certifier. Now, under joint and several, at least the people in Block A had somebody to go after. There was a last man standing. It was the Waitakere City Council. Now it's the Auckland Council. But the poor beggars in Block B didn't have anyone to go after because the builders had folded and gone or started under a new name or flitted off to the Gold Coast or whatever. And they're sitting there. One lady was just crying her eyes out, said she had to use a rubber stick to use on the light switches because water was cascading down the internal part of her wall and there was no one she could go after. It's a shame on our country that lies right across the industry and across governments and across a whole range of other businesses and so on. And we could spend a long time trying to pin down the liabilities of who this was. This is an attempt to try to get things fixed and move on.
Question is that Clause 1 stand part. Those of that... No, Clause 1. Question is that Clause 1 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The question is that Morris Williamson's amendment set out on SOP 249 be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. The amendment is agreed to. So the question now is Clause 2 as amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question is that Clause 3 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. Motion, Clause 3 is agreed to. I will report this bill with amendment. I'll cope.
The House is resumed. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, the committee has considered the Weathertight Homes Resolution Services Financial Assistance Package Amendment Bill and reports it with amendment. Mr. Speaker, I move that the report be adopted.
The question is that the report be adopted. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Point of order. The bill is set down for third reading next sitting day. Point of order, Joe Goodhue.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I seek leave now, given the progress that we've made, for the House to rise a little early this evening.
Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objection? There is no objection. The House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. on Tuesday, the 12th of July, 2011.